shifting more towards your adulthood, your coaching career here, you were a baseball first guy.
I
Why didn't
was.
you why didn't you pursue coaching baseball?
I did. I coached baseball and basketball both from the time I was probably 19, 20 years old at the high school level. And again, I go back to what I said about being a player too. I remember coaching, standing at third base coach's box, coaching freshmen and JV games, and just you're flexing every muscle in your body trying to stay warm because it's so cold out. And going home at night, and I was sore. Like I didn't even play, and I'm
Right.
young, 2020, and I'm sore. It's so cold out, and it just wasn't as much fun. And just the opportunity. And the other thing is just the atmosphere. I think anybody will tell you you can love baseball all you want, but the atmosphere, at a high school baseball game rarely reaches a level that even a pretty average attendance type high school basketball game. You know what I mean?
Right.
If there's an average
Right.
attendance at a high school basketball game, it's got a different feel to it. It's just a little more electric, a little more just the atmosphere kind of gets your heart going a little bit more, to say the least. And love baseball. I still probably watch more baseball on TV than I do basketball, but from a coaching standpoint, there's just nothing quite like that adrenaline rush, on a Friday night or even a Wednesday night.
Or Monday or Saturday morning like a freshman
There you
game.
go. There you go. Freshman games. Those freshman games are kind of like those high school baseball games a little bit. Crowd's
So
late arriving and quiet.
the atmosphere is great during a basketball game. So that shifted you towards basketball. Tell us some about your early coaching experience at Jefferson. How did you get into it? Some of your moments, some of your memories there.
Well, here's how I got into coaching. Honestly, I was going to Rock Valley College, and I was in one of those PE classes, one of those required classes, and we had to interview either a PE teacher or a former PE teacher or coach. And so I called my old high school coach, who was still the head coach at Jefferson, and I basically said, "Hey, I got to do this interview. Would you be available?" So I went over to his house, and we did the interview, and we're talking, and it was about coaching and being a PE. He was a driver's ed teacher. And he basically said, "Would you be interviewing? Would you be interested in coaching?" And this is like October. And the funny thing is, I was going to play for Rock Valley, and I broke my hand in intramurals, hurt my hand really bad in intramurals that year. And I just kind of thought about it. I'm like, man, I hadn't really thought about it, and I was a business major at the time. I was not an education major. So I said yes, and I went and did it, and just fell in love with it right away. And he was actually let go after that first year. Like to see that, like to think that wasn't my fault, but
Right, right,
so then Dean Marnetti comes in and he's hired as the head coach, and he's the story goes now he's my brother-in-law. I'm married
right.
to
Yep.
Paul, who's his sister, and Dean really taught me a lot about the game. Took me under his wing. He said, what do you want to do with this? And I said, I want to be a head coach. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So I changed to an education major. Gosh, I was 19 coaching 17, 18-year-olds my first year. And then the next year I think I was 20 years old coaching 14, 15-year-olds, and having 3-hour practices because I thought that's the way you did it, and just didn't really have a clue what I was doing. But man, I just fell in love with the process, just learning everything I could learn, attending clinics, talking to coaches. A lot of good people around here kind of took me under the wing, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Being a 19, 20-year-old coaching high schoolers, you're basically just out of high school yourself. That's about the time where I started coaching as well. What was your experience coaching kids? I wouldn't say that much younger than you, but they're pretty close in age to you.
It was surprisingly easy. I think the older you get, I think the hardest part becomes the relationship building part of it, and it's always the most important part of it. And I think when I was 19, I don't think I understood how important the relationship part of it was, but I just thought it was just easier because we were closer to the same age. We kind of got each other, and so it just kind of naturally happened. Now I think it's something I have to work at because kids will say things and I don't know what they're talking about anymore. So I've got to, I got to learn, and I got to just ask them, hey, what are you talking about when you say this? And
Right.
try and I think kids do like that. They laugh at you a little bit, but they do like the fact that you want to know what's important to them and things like that. So yeah, from that standpoint, it was easy. From a relationship standpoint, as far as the game goes, I don't know if the game has ever changed. I think I know a lot more about the game than I do now. But I think one thing I've learned through coaching is you can learn from anybody. And I learn from our players every single year. I learn from you guys, our assistants every single year. I think that's what's awesome about this game is you can learn from anybody.
So recently, our news station did a March Madness type bracket, and two of your teams made it to the finals. Two, like that's pretty impressive. First, how do you feel about that?
I thought that was really cool. I think we're all kind of scrambling for just our fix, I had three of the 16 teams in that. And then, there was two teams in it from 05, 06, and both teams were knocked out by my Rock Falls team, but they weren't a NIC-10 team, so they couldn't be in the bracket. So, that came at a time where I'm sitting at home and just kind of reflecting on some things. And yeah, I loved it because a lot of the kids that I coached reached out to me and had a chance to kind of, we just got re-engaged a little bit through that whole process. And the team that won it didn't even win a regional in high school. That's what's absolutely crazy. It's still to this day, I swear, is the most talented team I've ever been privileged to coach. We got upset, and it happens, and you see it and hear it every year. And we were one of those teams. We just, Sycamore pulled off a huge upset in the regional championship game. Still the most talented team though that I've ever had. And the next year, we lost two stud guards in Ricky Ellis and LC Robinson. And the next year, though, our chemistry was just better. I think I was probably a little better than I had been the previous year. Learned a lot about it. It was just, gosh, that was just my third and fourth years coaching as a head coach. That team that went downstate, I've always said on paper, the team that lost in the regional championship in 03-04 would beat the team that took fourth in the state by 10 points. I've always said that, if you played the game on paper and you just looked at it statistically. But I think you see why you play the game. There's a reason why you play it. Sycamore was really good that night, and we weren't, and they moved on. And then that Boylan team, I think it was the 15-16 Boylan team was in the championship with them. That team was special. They were talented but super smart. Just a really talented team. We could beat you a lot of ways, and we could just run and gun and be more athletic than you, impress you. And we played, we had a few games that year against Peoria Manual. We played Peoria Manual twice that year and had to play a different style against them. Had to mix in a little bit of zone because they were more athletic than us. The Williams kid is still playing at Illinois, and we ran into them again in the super sectional, lost by 3 in the super. But just a really, really great team as well. So, it makes you reflect and just kind of realize how lucky you've been to coach the type of talent that you've coached, and like I said, through that process, had the opportunity to reach out to old coaches and players, and just makes you probably more grateful than you've ever been through that.
Right, and with that bracket, it got you on Facebook to it prompted you to do a ranking of the teams that you coach. Would you like to talk about those teams for us here?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that 03-04 team was the most talented team. The 04-05 team, what they did speaks for itself. That 15-16 Boylan team that went 31-3, again, what they did speaks for itself. They're an eyelash away. And the thing that I don't know if struggle is the right word, but that Boylan team dropped down to 3A. And Auburn that very same year took 4th in 4A. I think every year that it's been 4 classes in our area, you wanted to be in 3A. Mm-hmm. Except for the one year we dropped down in 15-16, because Peoria Manual was they were a phenomenal team. They were ranked in the top 3 in the state all year. Even after we beat them in January, we beat them by 12 in January at Jefferson's MLK tournament. I think they were still ranked in the top 3. And Auburn, I think we beat Auburn by 20 plus both times we played them that year, and they go on to take 4th in 4A, and they had a great run, and they were a good team. That's kind of one thing you look at, and you can't control that stuff. You just gotta, if you get the bracket that shakes out your way, you take advantage of it. If you don't, there's nothing else you can do about it. You just gotta fight your way through it. And then I think that next team, that Rock Falls team in 05-06, you want to talk about a coach's dream. I mean, we had probably 40 different sets we could run at you at any time, but there was a lot of games we didn't need any of them where we would just press you and just run and gun. But the most intelligent group of kids I have ever had, the pleasure of coaching. They could digest a scouting report and just pick you apart. You could give them no scouting report and they'd find a way to pick you apart. They would, we had 3 guys that shot over 40% for 3-point range. Our 1, 2, and 3 all shot over 40%. We had a 7-footer that went to Evansville and then finished at Southeast Missouri. And probably the most underrated kid on that team was that we had a 6'5" post player who was athletic, inside, outside, blow by you off the dribble. His footwork in the low post was unbelievable. Mark Lautz was really, really good too. So that was a really fun team. The cool part of that for me was winning the sectional at Rock Valley with a group from Rock Falls a year after we had won the sectional with a group from Jefferson at Rock Valley. So it was kind of, I told the kids before the game, I said, this is kind of like bringing you home to meet my family. You know what I mean? It was like tons of Rockford people there, and we're playing Boylan, which, is pretty, Boylan is pretty polarizing in Rockford. You love them or you hate them. And so we had a lot of Boylan haters sitting with the Rock Falls people, and a lot of people it was just 2 years in a row. The atmosphere there was unbelievable. 04, 05, and 05, 06. Sectional championship game at Rock Valley, the best atmosphere you can. I mean, I'll fight you on it. There's no place better.
I know that the Harlem team, the last year's Harlem team, made your honorable mention. You want to talk about them any?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, I think I said in that post, if I remember right, I think I said one more year with those guys would have been really fun. And not that we're looking for 50 or seniors, but if we had just gotten them, maybe 1 year sooner and got them acclimated to our system a little bit, because they were still getting better. When we finished, we were still getting better every game. And, we struggled that last game. We didn't play well that last game, obviously, but that team was growing by leaps and bounds that year. So it would have been fun just to kind of continue that process with them. And just a group of kids that loved each other. I mean, they just absolutely loved being around each other and really grew together. And that was a lot of fun.